So today we're going to discuss about the types of muscle fibers. So there are basically three different types of muscle fibers. These are type 1, type 2A and type 2B. The type 1 muscle fibers is also known as the slow twitch. We call this slow twitch. And the type 2A is known as fast oxidative muscle fibers, while the type 2B is known as the fast glycolytic. So these are the three types of muscle fibers. So this is the slow twitch muscle fibers, which is basically used in the endurance activities, while this is fast oxidative. This uses oxygen and also uses the glycolytic pathway sometimes, while the type 2B does not use oxygen at all. So this is the fast glycolytic. So now let's move towards the major differences between these three muscle fibers. So the first one, the size and color. The size of the type 1 muscle fiber is small. The diameter is the smallest. It has the smallest diameter, while this is large, and this is the largest among these three. Now, when you talk about the color of the slow twitch muscle fibers and also the type 2A is red. And this is because the presence of myoglobin, which is absent in type 2B. That's why it's white in color, while there are some myoglobin 2 in this type 2A muscle fibers. The capillaries are also more in these two as compared to these, and also the mitochondrial density is highest in this, and this also has some more mitochondrial density when it's compared to the type 2B muscle fibers. Now, when we talk about the recruitment threshold, so this is basically the number of motor neuron activated by the muscle. So higher the recruitment threshold, the stronger will be the contraction and the power generated by the muscle. So the recruitment threshold of the type 1 muscle fiber is low, while it's a bit higher in the type 2A, while it's highest in the type 2B. That's why it produces the highest power among these three. Now, when you talk about the anaerobic capacity, this is the capacity to produce energy, which is also known as the ATP, in the absence of oxygen. That's why we call it anaerobic. It's the lowest in the type 1 muscle fiber, while it's comparatively high, and it's the highest in the type 2 muscle fibers. While when you talk about the aerobic capacity, it's the highest in the type 1 muscle fibers, while it's the lowest in the type 2B muscle fibers. Why this follows the aerobic oxidation, this follows aerobic and also glycolytic, while this follows only glycolytic pathway. So when you talk about the power generated by these muscles, type 1 muscle fiber produces the lowest power among these all three muscle fibers, while it's comparatively high in the type 2A, while it's very high. This is the highest in the type 2B muscle fibers. Now, the fatigue resistant. So the type 2 muscle fibers are generally used for endurance activities. Why? Because it is highly resistant to the fatigue. It does not get fatigued that easily, while this has a bit lower fatigue resistance as compared to the type 1 muscle fibers, but it still has higher fatigue resistance as compared to the type 2B muscle fibers. So what kind of activities uses these three different types of muscle fibers? So the type 1 muscle fibers are generally used in endurance activities. So these can be cycling, running, and swimming. These require endurance from the muscle without getting fatigued for the longer period of time. So these are used for the type 1. So when you talk about type 2A muscle fibers, these fibers are used in activities which require both endurance and also the power. Obviously, it cannot give as endurance as type 1 muscle fibers and also as much power as the type 2B muscle fibers. So this is the intermediate of type 1 and type 2. In the activities which needs both power and also the endurance, we use type 2A muscle fibers. These are the fast oxidative, and sometimes it can also use the anaerobic pathway and can be called as fast glycolytic. So the type 2A muscle fibers are used in activities like middle distance running, and also some kind of HIIT, which is also known as high intensity interval training. So these are the activities that use the type 2A muscle fibers, while the type 2B muscle fibers, which produces the maximum power but get fatigued very fast. So these muscle fibers are used in activities like weightlifting, sprinting, and the other activities which requires very high power, but the thing is it cannot last longer. The endurance is very low in these muscles. So that's all. To sum it up, type 1, slow twitch, type 2A and type 2B, these are the fast twitch muscle fibers, while the type 2A is the oxidative, while the type 2B is the glycolytic, and this has the highest endurance, this has the highest power, and this is the intermediate of type 1 and type 2B. which are used in activities that requires both power and endurance, but it does not have the endurance as much as type 1 and the power as much as type 2. So that's all about the types of muscle fibers. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button for more videos on fitness and nutrition, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.